World Food Day with the emphasis on ending hunger globally. Could there be business opportunities in doing so? We're joined from Cape Town by Herman Marais, managing partner at the private equity firm Agri-Vie. Welcome, Herman. If we talk about food security, and this is an ongoing theme, food security, and one hears that the theory is that potentially we could produce enough food to feed everyone on the planet. What are the constraints? Why aren't we able to do that?
If one thinks Africa-wide, Sub-Saharan Africa-wide, then the main challenges to us is lack of entrepreneurship on the one hand, and then secondly, Sub-Saharan Africa lacks the introduction of certain technologies at the agricultural level and major efficiency improvements in the rest of the value chain in order to fully realize that potential, which there undoubtedly is, not only to serve the increasing and rapidly growing urban markets of Sub-Saharan Africa, but also make a much more stronger contribution in terms of feeding the global food requirements.
So what I'm hearing is lack of entrepreneurship. We also don't have the skills and the infrastructure. So it sounds as though there needs to be some sort of an intervention. You've given us the statistic over the decade to 2010. South Africa spent 140 billion rand on interventions in agriculture and in ground development. Do you feel that has that been a drop in the ocean, or do you think it's been misspent? Has this indeed been productive investment?
I think the 140 billion, whichever the number is a sunk cost. I think the more important question is how do we ensure the productivity level of investment that goes into agricultural and agribusiness development. I think one of the issues which we have to tackle going forward, speaking from a South African perspective, and it's also an issue that has been picked up by the latest National Development Plan, is to make sure that when significant investments are channeled into the development and connection of emerging entrepreneurs in the agricultural and agribusiness sectors with mainstream activities, that those investments have to go hand in hand with access to know-how and access to markets, which have often been neglected in the past.
Herman, Wayne, I've got two questions. South Africa, can we really compete simply on a volume basis with the really big food producers? Is there enough arable land? Is there enough infrastructure, enough water? So can we really compete? Second question is, I firmly believe that the true future for economic growth in Africa is agriculture. That's the only real source or still of suitable land that is going to be developed. How long do you think that's going to take?
Well, I think on your first question, it is a real challenge volumes-wise. We do see, even in the companies where we partner as an equity partner, that those companies that have a very stringent focus on process efficiency does make progress to break through at an international competitiveness level. As far as the Africa situation is concerned, we see quite an interesting future ahead for South African companies engaging with the rest of the Africa opportunity as far as agri and food is concerned. We see a lot more of the agricultural operators as well as food manufacturers and retailers developing sufficient confidence to operate on a larger scale in the rest of the continent. And we think that scenario is going to play out much more forcefully over the next 5 to 10 years. We see that in our own portfolio where we're partnering some of these players moving further north, and it's going to be an interesting future and a much more engaged South Africa with the rest of the continent lying ahead of us.
Could I ask you, Herman, just two questions also. First question is, what is the impact of the land restitution process on agricultural development or arable land development or growth of crops for commercial purposes? The second question is, why does it always seem like if you are a producer, if you're a farmer, you're always on the shorthand of things? If you're a producer of food like a Tiger Brands or a retailer of food like a ShopRite, you're always on the good hand of things.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think on the first one, As we all know, as a nation, we are muddling through the issues around land restitution, and I think all well-meaning South Africans support the basic premise that there has to be restitution. I think, as I highlighted earlier, probably our key challenge is to ensure that whoever controls or owns or manages land, that is done in the most productive possible way, both to ensure that we have a good path to maintaining food security, but also, even more importantly, for Agri to fulfill its full role as a catalyst for socio-economic development in the country. And if we look at the performance statistics productivity-wise during the period of land reform that we've had so far, then we have cause for concern. And we need to tackle those challenges more head-on. Your second question is a very good question, and it addresses the fact that farmers are most often at the price taking level. They're not price makers, and we see that producers of commodities that are selling into food processors often, as you said, gets the short end of the stick. So far, the key challenge or the key solution has been scale for those producers to step up to becoming larger scale operators, which give them scale economies and also put them at a better place in terms of the balance of power versus the producers and ultimately the retailers. Perhaps it's an issue which, from a national agri and food sector development perspective, it's perhaps an issue that has to be taken up between the stakeholders to maintain that balance in the value chain on a more equitable basis.